Hi there, Marcus here. Today we're gonna have the longest workflow ever, so that's why I'm doing an introduction here. The result you can see on this URL, podcast.workflowsofai.com. This is the website that it has generated. So for once, this is an end-to-end workflow where we basically start from scratch and build a whole website and have a finished website. What this is that is a podcast about Drupal weekly news, but the kicker here then is that I'm not gonna sit and do editorial work. I'm not gonna sit with my crummy voice or my non-native English language and try to create something that would be probably horrific. This is actually 100% auto-generated. This means that I have set up the code once. I'm just gonna let it run, except for server updates and Drupal updates. I'm just gonna let it run. Maybe do some tweaks here and there because there's some other kind of content I forgot here. But otherwise it's just running by itself. The end result is basically a podcast that comes every week that talks about a lot of sources. So it comes from like Planet Drupal, it comes from other podcasts, it comes from security announcements. It's also discussing new a new module of the week. So it's looking in for like the last 2 weeks. Is there anything interesting in full projects or modules? And it's creating a podcast around this. And everything is 100% optimized except one thing, and that's the introduction song. It's still done by AI, so it's done by GPT-4 combined with Suno AI. But it will be the same song always until Suno AI has API, because then you can do even more fun stuff like having a introduction song that actually sings about the content that it's gonna talk about. But we're not there yet because they don't have API basically. This is of course done on the back of many great writers, many great podcast producers. So just take it for what it is. I mean, it is probably pretty boring, but it gives you an idea what you could do for clients that might want to have internal podcasts or might want to have external podcasts even with stuff that's happening inside the company. It has a XML, so you can actually use it on your mobile phone if you want to listen to this on your way to work. It is, I think, a pretty good summarization of what's happening in Drupal the last week. And yeah, that's it. So this was basically the introduction of it. You can go listen to it before you start, looking into this long video on how to set it up, so you can see the actual results from it. I will also be completely honest, and I'm saying this during when I'm setting it up. The setup that I made is done without a single line of code. I haven't written any code. This comes with certain restrictions, which I have after that basically gone through to make a even better podcast, meaning that I have added code for doing stuff like the new module of the week, that I couldn't find a pathway where I could do this with just the builder tools in Drupal. I had to write code for this, but you will get something that's 90% of what you're seeing here. So it's still a very good solution. And yeah, that's it. Listen to it. If you like it, if you think this is something that you want to create for clients or for your own website, then please go ahead. I mean, it's very useful for the long tail. So Drupal is maybe not so long tail because there are podcasts. There's very good podcasts already about Drupal. But if we're talking about even longer tails, this might actually be a good way of being able to go into some very specific niche and create a podcast around it. One more thing to think about when you're looking at this workflow, so the tutorial, is that I did not prepare anything. to be honest, before setting this up. I had some thoughts what I wanted to produce, right? This means that I do make mistakes during the time, and I might rectify those later in the video, so it's kind of important that you look at the whole video if you're interested in this. Otherwise you might end up with a product that doesn't work, basically. Hopefully, so this took almost a day to make this video, which is a lot of time for me because I want to focus on other stuff. I thought this was though funny because it's an end product. Hopefully I will have this time to do other end products, but for now this will be the only video where I'm showing end to end how to set up a website. So yeah, if you're interested, continue watching. If you're not interested but still interested in the podcast, just look at this URL then, or I'm gonna register it at different podcast directories, so you can probably just search Drupal Weekly News and you will be able to find it. And that's it. Happy watching. So welcome to these development sessions. There are two things I already have on my machine that I will not explain how to do, but I will show you where there is documentation how to do it, and it's very simple and it depends on your operating system. So I'm running Linux, right, in this example, but this works as well on Windows. There are two versions for Windows, but use VSL2, so that's Linux on Windows. If you have the opportunity to do it, it makes stuff a lot faster, simpler. And then there is installations for Mac OS if you prefer that. The other thing is I use Visual Studio Code. It's the same thing you can see for other platforms. It exists for Windows, Debian, Red Hat, or any Linux and Mac. So this works on any operating system that you are running. So these two are already installed. I'm now gonna set up the project. So this you can find under CMS Quick Start, and we just click down then to Drupal because we're gonna use Drupal in this case. And I'm just gonna copy this here and I run it in the terminal. So if you're if you're on Mac or Linux, it's terminal. If you're on Windows, you should use VSL2 preferably, but I guess you can do it in PowerShell as well. I'm not sure actually, I don't use Windows that much. So my best guess is use VSL2, but maybe PowerShell will work as well. Locally, I would just call this podcast. I would just go into podcast, and then we're gonna start this. That creates a doc root. We're gonna start ddev. There's one important thing here. So since I've been running ddev before, this is gonna go very fast. If you're installing ddev for the first time, this might take time because it needs to download a lot of Docker containers. So now it's actually available on this website. I'm not gonna go there yet though. I can prepare it. I'm gonna run without HTTPS in this case. We don't have any like WebRTC or something that requires SSL locally, and we're just gonna use Composer to get the recommended Drupal system. Gonna get drush, that is Drupal shell, so we can run shell commands here in the terminal. That makes stuff a lot faster than clicking around in the GUI. So if you really hate the terminal, you can actually do, I think, all the things I show in drush you can actually do in terminal. So then we have drush up and running. Then I'm just gonna copy this, but I'm gonna do one change to it. So this is installing Drupal, right? In theory, I could just click here and install it manually, but I don't want to do that. I want to use drush. But this would install the standard installation that comes with nodes and stuff, or nodes actually I want, but it comes with a lot of other things installed that I just don't want. So I'm just gonna check through site install minimal, I guess it's called. So minimal, okay, so it comes directly after the command. So we set minimal here. So username and password is admin, that's okay. I'm running it locally, it doesn't need any security locally. When I deploy it somewhere, of course, we should change this. And then, oh, this creates a one-time user login. I'm not sure why I would want that actually. This just opens in the browser, but that I already have here. So we're here. We have our website up and running. It looks very ugly. That's because I used the minimal setup, which is not so nice looking. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get Gin for Drupal. So Gin is a very, very good admin theme. And since this web page, well, we will see later, maybe I'm actually gonna add a front end to the web page, because my idea is later that you can actually personalize your podcast if you're just interested in security updates, for instance. You should be able to get that, or security updates and security news. Say that you want that combination. You should be able to just get a podcast that just talks about that, for instance. So this will come later. I'm gonna prepare it when we're doing this, but I'm not gonna show it yet. So we just copy the composer command, run ddev and this composer command, and it let's see here, what's wrong here. Oh, we need Gin toolbar first, right? See if it works better if I get Gin toolbar first. And then we can get Gin login as well, because it looks nice basically. So the login will look a lot nicer. So then I got those three things. I'm gonna go to administration, extend. The first thing I'm gonna do here is turn on the toolbar, so we actually don't have to click around this much. And then Gin login, Gin toolbar, we're gonna install here as well. Yeah, breakpoint module is okay to install. And then we click appearance. You see there's an admin toolbar now, and we're gonna install this, and we're gonna use this as administration theme. And now you can see it looks a lot better, right? So that's that. I can just show you for the fun of it as well that I can log out, and you see that the login page looks already a lot nicer. So one thing I saw there right away that we can, or no, that's, yeah, we can do that. But first I need the admin toolbar. So you see here, if I hold over something, I still have to click. There's no submenu here. So this is what the admin toolbar solves. So we're just gonna install that. And go to extend again, and admin toolbar, and admin toolbar extra tools is good as well. And all right, the Gin uses this admin toolbar. I actually don't like that much. I mean, it looks nice, but I'm not used to it. So I'm just gonna go to appearance, settings, and choose that I want the legacy classical toolbar in this case. Save. I want dark mode, I think, as well is nicer, so we save that as well. Yeah, I'm just gonna do this as well. I'm gonna set this to default until we actually do what I said before with having podcasts running in the front end. I'm just gonna set this because then it looks nicer when I come to pages that's not inside the admin structure, right? So now we have that running. So we're gonna start setting up stuff that needs one thing first that's very important before I start with that, or two things actually, when it comes to ddev that we need to fix. So one thing first in the composer, let's see here. This is not our project. I'm just gonna go back to the terminal. So if you have Visual Studio Code running, you can just write code dot in the directory where your code is, and it's gonna open up an editor basically inside there. So we have our editor here. In the composer JSON, I'm gonna do something. So minimum stability we have to set to dev, because the AI Interpolator modules that I will show you later, they're still running in beta mode. So they will soon be in production ready. I'm running them in production for my company, and now I'm gonna do this podcast website that I'm running personally. That's gonna be kind of in production as well, right? Anyway, so that's that. The other thing I'm gonna do is in ddev config.yaml, there should be so there's a web image extra packages that takes care of installing stuff, and we need ffmpeg to be able to cut in podcasts. So because of that, I just write ffmpeg so it installs that. Then I can actually start a new terminal here in Visual Studio Code. We don't need terminal or PowerShell anymore, and this will run bash even if you're on Windows. So this is gonna work the same in Windows as well, for sure. And then we just run ddev start, and it's basically gonna restart with ffmpeg on the server now. The next thing we're gonna do then is to search for ddev and cron, because we want a cron job running. And this is a plugin, if I remember correct. So I didn't work so much with ddev. I used to work with Doxal a lot, but for professional reasons, I want to learn ddev, so that's why I'm doing it here. So you're learning with me basically. So we're just gonna get the cron job here, and then there is ddev web build, and there is a time cron example. We can copy and paste this then, and it's supposed to be called what? Cron star.cron. Anything that's cron. Okay. So we're just gonna call this podcast.cron, and what we're gonna set up is the queuing system, and to be able to see what this is actually called, I would first install the AI Interpolator and all the things we need there. So what we need here is the AI Interpolator OpenAI. So these are the modules that I'm working on, the AI Interpolator stuff. So I'm just gonna download this now. We also need ScrapingBot. That is basically a way to scrape stuff. And it's not just a way to scrape stuff, it's a way to scrape stuff that's rendered via JavaScript. So a lot of modern websites, right, they are not scrapable server-side render. They need JavaScript to render, so you actually need a browser to take scrape this. So that's why there is the ScrapingBot. And if you're gonna do this workflow, you're gonna use ScrapingBot, since it's a service that costs money, by the way. Notice that there is a promo code here. You can use Drupal AI and you get some money off to test it, right? And you also help with the development of this module by doing this, because they are nice enough to give me free credits for automated testing to make sure that it works all the time, basically. So now that we have the AI Interpolator there, we can run ddev queue list, I think it is. No, sorry, ddev drush, because it's drush we have to run the queuing system. So there is no, let's see if we can find the queue. Oh, you're right, sorry. There's an obvious thing I forgot here. I of course have to install the AI Interpolator, otherwise it doesn't show up. So we're gonna do AI Interpolator OpenAI, AI Interpolator ScrapingBot. This is gonna then install OpenAI core as well. That's gonna complain that we don't have an API key. So if I do Q list, you see there's AI Interpolator field modifier. And since this is an automatic system, it's very important that all the AI interpolation runs in a cron job, because it has to be automated, and the saving of something might just take too long for the normal cron job. So we want to have it in a queuing system instead. So because of this, basically what we're gonna do here is cd to this directory, which is the home directory, right? We're not need to run date there, and we just need to run drush. I'm just gonna do something here. We do dev ssh, so I jump into the Docker container and see if I can run drush. Yes, it's a globally known command, because what you can do otherwise, if it's not, you can do something like php vendor bin drush, and this is usually more secure. So this is how I'm gonna set up the cron job on the server, because it's basically less secure to let scripts by themselves tell what is the executable. Because in theory, someone could, hack or get some other drush file that just runs a bash command or something. Anyway, I'm gonna then do q. Let me just run the q command again. It's execute, I guess. No, q run. So it's good I ran that. AI Interpolator field modifier, and we're gonna set it up so it runs every minute. And there should be a let's do q run help. There is this time limit is what I want to add. So time limit equals 55 seconds. So basically it runs every minute, and it's allowed to run up to 55 seconds before the next one starts. And then we're just gonna run, I think, dev start again, was it? Dev restart. And then this is running. So now we can make sure that whatever we want to do with the AI Interpolator is happening automatically based on this. There is another module that's extremely important here that we actually install. So if we go to the, here, this is what I'm looking for, AI Interpolator module, we should run Q unique. This is basically a must when you run cron queues. So it's a great module that makes sure that you can't have the same queue execution happening twice, which is basically what would happen with the AI Interpolator. Because how that works is that if the field that you want to interpolate into is not filled out yet, it's gonna try to process it. But with the cron job processor, of course, this means that you could save the entity, realize, and then it stores like, okay, next minute or whatever it is in the queue, I'm gonna run this process, and it stores this, but then you realize, oh, I had a typo in the title, so you fix that typo and save again. This of course will create another queue object, because it sees, okay, this field is empty, so let's create another queue object. And this is basically doing the same thing twice. And this of course sucks big time if you're doing something like a podcast that might be hundreds of thousands of tokens, might cost a couple of dollars to generate, right? And then it does it twice. And if it does this often, the costs add up. So you need Q unique to make sure that this doesn't happen. So we're gonna install that right away. Q. Oh, I didn't. Oh, it's still downloading. Okay. Q unique, and we install that. So now we got that. So the next thing, because what I'm gonna set up now is the environment, so we're ready to start developing, right? So that means setting up so it's actually ready to be pushed into a repo. So it's I can set up, you know, a CI/CD system around it. And one very important thing is here that, you know, we have all these keys. So the OpenAI API key, for instance, that we do not, of course, want to push into the repo, especially maybe it's a public repo. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make this public, to be honest. I will showcase not everything, but I'm gonna showcase the base, at least, how to set this up for you. So we need a way around that, right? So, but first of all, I will start installing stuff that I know that I want to set up that needs API key. So the next thing we need is that we need Elevenlabs, because Elevenlabs is basically gonna tell us how to, no, it's gonna generate the audio. Sorry, I get a little bit confused sometime, and when I'm gonna do such a long video, I can't keep everything in my mind, so I might be rambling sometimes. Sorry about that. So then we have Elevenlabs field. We're just gonna go ahead and install this as well. So we're gonna install the Elevenlabs field, but also the AI Interpolator Elevenlabs. So that's what makes sure that you can automatically generate dialogues. So Elevenlabs field by itself, you would manually write what you want the people to say, right? But in this case, we're gonna automate this. If you don't have FFmpeg running on your server, you can, in theory, set up this use case as well using Elevenlabs field bytescale. So this is an API service from bytescale that is here, where they do it for you over API. But this, just so you know, it costs money, of course. So for automated podcasts that happens often, maybe it's too expensive, I don't know, or it's more cheap for you to install the FFmpeg. That also doesn't have the cool stuff where you can overlay audio. So what we're gonna have in this podcast example is that there's gonna be, you know, music in the intro underlying the introduction and cool stuff like that that you can't do with the bytescale. So bytescale can just take audio and put them after one another. So we're gonna install that. This installs the file module as well. And then if I go to configuration, web services, there is Elevenlabs settings and ScrapingBot. So we need all these three things running now. And how we're gonna make sure that we don't store it locally is that we're gonna get the .key module for Drupal. Oh, is it not .key? What is it? .env. Sorry, what did I don't know where I got .key from. .env, and this we're gonna then run ddev. I'm gonna show you now how much better it is to run stuff in Drush, because what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna install this over Drush instead of reloading, searching, and so on. So now I actually install this. I can just verify this. So if we do extend and I search now .env, you see it's installed. This has a command in it that is here, drush.env init, and this is gonna set up the initial .env. Oops, sorry. So now you're gonna see there's a .env and a .env example. .env examples take care of, this is gonna be in the repo. So that's where you can say, basically, you can store stuff like, in this case, you can store the database actually, because it's locally, so the database credentials are in no way they're in no way secret. You can also, we can set append to dev actually. Let's see, like this. But here we can also then do OpenAI key. No, so we just write like this, your OpenAI key, and then we have ScrapingBot. I think that is username and password, if I remember correct. Let's see here. Yeah, username API kit. So scraping bot password. Oh, so there is one thing, by the way, just so you know, I have on my private machine I have a Copilot installed. So if you wonder why I'm getting autocomplete that you might not get, you can get this via Copilot Visual Studio Code, but it costs there's a monthly fee for it that you have to pay, basically. There's a legal risk to that as well. I will say it right away, even if Microsoft claims that they pay for any problem. So there's a license, for instance, called AGPL that says that anything, if you put some code that is AGPL'd on a server anywhere that's publicly facing and they realize that this code is there, you have to contribute all the code you made. So this is a huge legal problem for you if this happens. So in my case, it's fine because I do open source. It doesn't matter. I contribute already. That's what I want to do, right? Oh, this was a great typo, by the way. And then Elevenlabs API key. So one extra row, because then we have those, right? And then we can just fill these out in the end file. So I can just show you how it works here, because the Elevenlabs, as far as I know, I can't generate multiple API keys. So in that case, I don't want to show it here because then I have to rotate the key and I'm using it at other places. But I will show you how it works, for instance, then with OpenAI, because here I can create a new key, podcast test to be replaced. So I remember to replace this after I'm finished with this, because otherwise you could in theory take this key and, you know, do stuff on my account that cost me money. And you just put this into the end file, and the end file doesn't go into the repo. So in that case, I could also do, which makes sense, I could have a development key for OpenAI for the local development, because this basically, in theory, if you send them stuff that are not allowed according to the content policies, you can actually be cut off OpenAI. I mean, that has to be malicious. You start sending a lot of not safe for work stuff, you know, you want to make a sex bot or something, then it can be turned off. But of course, in theory, this could happen, because I could have something like, there's some Drupal news about some NGO helping out in Palestine. You know, there's a big conflict right now, or it's been forever, but it's worse than ever. And they might have some political opinion, of course, about what's happening there that might be very heated. So they're not allowed to the content policy, and then you try to feed this into OpenAI, and, you know. So just so you know, the AI Interpolator, it runs it through moderation before, so it's not going to happen with AI Interpolator, but in theory it can happen. So that's why it's good to have two different keys. So the rest of these things I'm gonna fill out so you don't actually see it, but then you know how to fill it out, right? And the next step then is that we're gonna add this to the settings.php. So here you can take the decision if you should push settings.php to the repo or not, but in this case, I mean, .env was for the longest time said that you please don't run this on production, but I think it's actually fine nowadays. So what you shouldn't push in this case then is the settings ddev.php. So that might, or basically you should remove it before it gets deployed, because that has a lot of development settings. But anyway, what we will set up here then is the settings so we can get these. So now we have to try to figure out basically how, let me just remove that, we don't need a local as well. Here you can see, by the way, it loads the database from env-db name. So this is basically, it's getting this one and replaces this. So that's how it works, right? So what we're gonna do now is to set up all the settings. But we need to figure out what they are, and to do this we need to set a config export place. So configs, for you who hasn't run Drupal, or if you ran Drupal 7 or before, that's definitely the main strength of Drupal, I would say. So I used to do Drupal long time ago. I used to do Drupal 5, Drupal 4.7. I was a huge Drupal fan. Drupal was everything for me. I even, used it where you probably shouldn't be using Drupal because I loved it so much. But then a lot of more stable ways of doing development came. So I moved away. I got job in, bigger companies working on bigger global, huge scale products. I was working on one of the top 20 products in terms of scale in the world, and stuff that, completely other programming languages, Lua, Java, what have you not, because Drupal was not professional anymore. And I know this is a big conflict. Some people loves the Drupal hobby tool, that's Drupal 7, right? But if you're working on a professional or enterprise environment, this sucks because it's so untestable. There are so many steps to set up stuff, and I know with Backdrop there's a lot of improvements actually running the Drupal 7 together with this. But anyway, I like 4 or 5 years ago I got working on a big event website that is truly big as well. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of visitors coming all of a sudden the same second, and we actually did the decision to run this in Drupal. And then I came back to look into what Drupal has to offer now, and from Drupal 8 on they have improved so much, so much. So, and one part of this is the configuration system then. So what I'm setting up here just is a config sync directory. So what I can do now, so you should always put this outside the web root if you can, if your hosting allows it, so no one can actually find this by mistake. I know there's a htaccess file, but maybe the server runs nginx and doesn't notice this or something. So always try to put it outside of the web root. And then there is just this command, trash config export, and then it created a directory here, config sync, with all the different configurations that builds up this website. So what is cool here now is I could kill this website off completely and rebuild it again, except for the content. So there's a difference between configuration and content. So I'm not gonna go into this too much, but I'm just telling people that might be looking at this video because you find the whole idea of generating a podcast automatic, and Drupal has, I would say, has a bad reputation, and that is, I would say, earned, because Drupal 7 as a developer was horrible, to be honest. I understand that some people loves it. It's great for actually setting up a website without knowing that much development, but as a developer it was horrible. And for you who have this idea, I would say try Drupal now again, because it is really great, and you will not find a better tool when you want a CMS that is flexible, meaning a CMS where you might get a requirement in the future that is off the normal path of a CMS. Then WordPress is hell to work with, and I am a WordPress developer as well. WordPress is super when you want to set up a CMS that follows the normal, content, search for the content, have some fancy first page and so on. WordPress is better than Drupal in that case, because the editorial experience is just better out of the box, and Drupal requires a lot more work to get it up to the same level. But if you need something that can scale and also can extend in a way that is just better than WordPress. And on the other side of it, compared to writing this, so if we take the PHP example, because well, no, let's talk about, you know, if you use Symfony or some framework, or if you know JS, you use Express or something. I've used them a lot in my work, and there is no way you can even come anywhere close in setting up a proof of concept or a prototype website as fast as you can in Drupal. So I would say having a working first version of a Drupal website is 10 times faster than anything you can build from scratch when you know how to use it. So that's why I actually push now for everyone to use Drupal, especially with this AI stuff. So that's why I started working on the AI Interpolator. Drupal has all the, I mean, I was working with Python and LangChain, and I realized, okay, I have to build like there's no really great CMS for Python that works as flexible and extendable as Drupal. And Drupal has its field API where it has all the field definitions for extremely complex field type, like opening hours, where, you know, you have Monday I'm open between these hours, Tuesday I'm open with this hour, but I have exception for lunch or something like that. That is a field type that you can actually, you know, generate automation for via AI. So I quickly realized that instead of, you know, trying to write this in Python where I would have to write everything around the AI chaining, because LangChain is awesome, but write everything around LangChain, it was better to replicate the important things for me myself from LangChain into a system that takes care of all the content framework, which is Drupal. So yeah, sorry, I got off tangent here, spending a lot of time talking about stuff that has nothing to do with this. But yeah, I am a Drupal believer again, let's say it like that. So anyway, we have created this config sync. What we can do now, just to figure out something, so the ScrapingBot username, and no, let's start with the, oh, I hope the OpenAI key, no. Yeah, okay, I pasted that. Sorry, I got confused there. That's in the end file. So what we want to figure out now is how to get it in there. So we can just write test here, and I will show you what happens now then. So now our configuration is saved. If I run config export again, it's gonna say, oh, hey, look at this OpenAI settings changed. I just say yes, and then it's gonna update this file. And if we go to this file, we're gonna see then that it has an API key called test. But this is not what we want, of course. So what you can do in the settings is that you can override this by using the settings variable. Then you use the file -YAML. So that's OpenAI settings. And then, yeah, it auto-completes your API key, but that we can find here. So that's this. We want to set a value that is n OpenAI API key. Is that what we said? No. So it's not aware of this file. This is what we want, right? And then we can just do the same here for ScrapingBot. And do the same for Elevenlabs. So, and when we have done that, we can run config sync export again, sorry. You see there is AI Interpolator ScrapingBot. So we just do that, say things AI Interpolator ScrapingBot. Then you can press Ctrl E in Visual Studio Code, because then you can start writing the name of some file and it's gonna find it. Then you can see here what the keys are, username and API key. We do use, oh sorry, that's supposed to be here, and that equals env. I just copy and paste this, and this was what? This was API key, and this we call here username and password. I guess I should actually call this API key to be more consistent. and this is then in here as well. We set that, and then the last one is AI Elevenlabs field settings, and we just open that field settings YAML, and this is API key, right? So we do API key. And I don't think that's what, oh, that's what it was. Well, just let's copy and paste just to be certain. So now we have set up this in the settings.php. The .n file I'm gonna set up outside of this recording, so in another window, just so you know, so you don't see my keys. The next step then is that we can set up a Git repo. In this case, I'm gonna use GitHub. Oh, I am logged in. I'm gonna create a new repository called podcast. I can just call it podcast, I guess. I set it privately. Maybe I will make it public later. I don't know. Let's see. And I create repository. Then inside here, I'm just gonna run git init. This is then gonna start a repository here that is gonna store all the stuff that I want. And the next thing I want to do is to create a git ignore file here. So we just create a .git ignore, and this basically says which files should we not send into the repo. So we start by not sending the .env, right? And I think there is already one in web, right? So there should be a .git ignore here, I guess. No, there isn't, but there's an example. So we're just gonna copy these into here. So that will take care of a lot of stuff not being sent. So settings.php, I'm actually okay with saving in this case. Site simple test and so on. And in this git ignore, we have to make sure that the vendor library is also not sent. So there's no reason that all these dependencies that we have that we're downloading should be stored in our repo, since it's enough to run the composer install command as soon as you have gotten your website, basically. So let's see here. It seems to be having core. I don't want core to be sent here. Why doesn't it do that? Let's see here. Git ignore, where was git ignore? There. So another thing we don't want is modules contrib. So we don't want, well, let's just do this, and themes contrib, because those we are getting as well. Profiles contrib is sent. I'm not gonna, sites is okay. Site star file we should also remove, so that's all the files that gets created. And the core we also don't want to basically push into GitHub. Let's see here. So that should be it, I guess, for now. Editor config for, yeah, we can have that, that's fine. So we have done the git ignore to make sure that certain stuff just don't go in there. And then we're just gonna do git add star. So we're gonna push everything. Git commit initial setup, initial local setup, and right, we create a git branch main. I might have branches on this later, but I'm just gonna copy the remote here, and then we're just gonna push it. No, it's gonna complain because I need to set upstream, of course. So now I'm just taking my code and putting into the repo. We reload here, and that means that me myself, if I have another computer, I can just now do git pull from this ddev start. It's gonna set up the whole environment, and then run ddev composer install to get all the stuff, and then run the installation command. I will create batch commands for this later for ddev, but that is something you can look up yourself. So at least you now have then an environment to start with. So that ends the first part of this recording. So next step is that we have to start creating content types. And in the basic setup I'm gonna show you, I'm just gonna have 2 content types making up the well, 3 content types. So it's gonna be the podcasts, and that's what's gonna be generating the actual audio in the end, and this is what's gonna be publicly available also using the podcast module later. There's gonna be an intro, and there's gonna be a news, and the news is what we're gonna auto-fetch. So we're gonna use the feeds module in the ScrapingBot, but it's, I mean, just so you know, say that you have a blog, then you of course can generate a podcast maybe monthly or something from all the blog posts you did, so you don't have to have external sources necessarily. So we just do this under structure and content type. We start by adding the news. Maybe we can call it Planet Drupal news, or no, news, because later what I show you now, I'm just gonna use RSS to get from Planet Drupal, but later on I'm gonna add, I'm not gonna show this, so I'm gonna make it a lot more complex where it can get security announcements, where I use I will show you another module here, AI Interpolator, SERP, this one, that can actually Google, so it can Google news about Drupal. So it just gets the last week's news and try to, you know, filter, is this really about Drupal, is this important for Drupal, and so on. So I will add that later as well. Probably add sources like there's a lot of really good podcasts about Drupal that's made by humans that are far better than what's going to be created here. So what we can use there is that we use the deepgram. I will just show you deepgram AI Interpolator that can listen to these and basically listen to what they're talking about and make a summary of this. So we can also have like news, like this week there is this podcast you can listen to, and they talk about this and this. Follow the show notes to listen to them. But right now, for the first version and the first version you will hear, it's just gonna be setting up stuff from Planet Drupal basically. These are news that build up the podcast. They might be used or discarded. So one thing here is, if I were to do this without trying to show off now here, I would have done this as a custom entity type. But what I want to show you how to set up this as well as possible without actually having to code, as few lines of code as possible basically. So they don't need to be published, promoted to front page and so on. Actually, I will try to hide them from people, right? I don't care about author and date information. This comes with something called news in this case, but I'm not gonna use that. So that was the content type, sorry. I'm stupid. News for the podcast that might be discard it. I wanted to add fields there. I thought it was auto generate the field, but that field is actually called body, like you will see here. And the reason I can't see this is I need to add a module called the field UI. Oh, one thing I actually will set up, because it's complaining about the cron job, is that we also will set up a cron. Now we can have that here. Make sure that it runs the cron also. So drush cron. So this is running all the time, the cron job also, because it's complaining otherwise here. So now we set up the field UI. So if we go back to the content type now there will be manage field here. And here we're gonna remove body. And I'm gonna add oh, right. So here's something we need to get some, we need the options here. And let's see, where do we have the field types? We need link. So these are field types that we're setting up. We need datetime because we need to know when the news came in. Telephone, I don't think we need. I mean, there is actually interpolators that can get the telephone number if we need to say someone's telephone number somewhere. And now I guess, yeah, it's better. So we have a lot of stuff here. What we will start with is, I think we add an extra date field here that we call published date, because creation date and update date are built into Drupal, right? But they might not actually, well, I mean, we can sync creation date to the published dates in feed. Actually, that's enough. We don't need an extra field for that, or do we need that? Let's keep an extra field. Just, I'm uncertain now if I need it, but let's just keep it there. It's required. So this will be autofilled then via feeds. Yeah, there is one place I realize now. So later I'm gonna scrape from Google News Sources, and there is maybe no structured way of seeing the published date. So it actually has to look into the document and try to find it via AI. So in this case, it makes sense to have another field that I can use the AI Interpolator with. Then we have formatted text, that is the HTML. So this is gonna scrape the actual website's content and get the HTML. And this is gonna be limited to 1. And the next thing we're gonna do is to set up a link. So this is the URL, right? That's where it's located. And this takes only external and disabled link text. Let me see. So we have title, publish date, URL. That should be what we need to scrape it from via the feeds module. So I'm just gonna add the other ones. So this is introduction. So this is gonna create an introduction each time for the podcasts, but I'm not adding any field, I'm just preparing it here. And then we have the actual podcast. So that's the final podcast. Title, this can be published. Well, no, it should be unpublished by default, so we can actually build it beforehand and then publish it later. I'm not sure if we're gonna make, yeah, we can make those publicly available, I guess, so you can actually find them. Oh, I should write a description for both those also. The actual final podcast. So we're gonna come to this later. But for now, the next step we want to do is basically get news sources that we're gonna base the initial podcast on, and this we're gonna get from Planet Drupal. So Planet Drupal is, you know, a blog basically that has interesting articles that happened recently in RSS feed. Well, they have it in this graphical feed, but we're just gonna look for the feeds, right? And see if we can find it here. Oh no, that's how to add it. Let's see here. Maybe I should search for RSS feeds. There we go. So we have the main here, right? And oh, sorry, we need the feed. Oh, it's downloading in Firefox. Anyway, that's the URL we need. So what we need now is feeds module from Drupal. So we're gonna use this to basically get the actual content. So I'm gonna copy this as usual, do ddiv, and we're gonna do dev pm enable feeds crush. I forget crush all the time. PM, so we're just installing it as well. And if I reload now, there under structure there should be feed types where we can add a feed type. We call this news sources. So I'm just gonna take something to drink here. So these are the news sources that we need, right? It's gonna download from URL. We use RSS atom. Processor is node, and we put them in news, right? It can import every, I don't know. Yeah, let's take every hour. That's okay. We don't have to download it if it didn't get updated. Request is 30, language English. Insert new content items. We don't need to update existing ones. Previously imported items we keep. This I'm gonna fix later. So, you know, after the actual podcast is created and saved, I will only keep this for like a month, or initially for 2 weeks. The reason I want to keep them a little bit longer in the future is because I'm gonna add an even better logic. So in this logic, in this initial logic that I will show you, I will make sure that it doesn't say the same news 2 times, because it could be that 2 different news sources are reporting on the same thing, right? And that's totally uninteresting to say that twice. So we're gonna take care of fixing so this doesn't happen via prompting, but later on I will also make sure that it can look backwards to make sure that it doesn't say something that has happened before, or even follow up. So basically you had a news of something that was evolving, and then the next podcast you will say, like we talked about the last podcast, there are some new news happening around blah blah blah, right? So make sure that this happens. An owner can be the admin in this case, and author basic create. We don't create new revisions, and that's it. And then we're gonna go ahead and manage field. I don't know why it looks so funny here. Is that the Gin module doing this maybe? Or Gin, let me just try something here. I'm just gonna turn on Claro instead. See if this looks better. Oh, Claro should be administration team, of course. Okay, so that looks better. So Gin actually has a bug. So Gin is not actually production ready yet. It is a release candidate. So that could be one of the problems with it. So we're gonna set now, we're gonna map then title to the feed's title. We're gonna map URL to the item URL. We don't need a link text in this case. And we're gonna take also publish date, we said, which is gonna be the item creation date, no, publish date. And this is it. We're gonna save this, and then we're gonna add a new source. So let's see here, new source, where is it we add it? Is it not under content? Is there a module I need to install more? Maybe. See here, feed, no, it should be here. So there we have the new sources, and we want to add a new source. I thought it was under content. No, there we go, feeds. Not sure why it doesn't show up in the menu. I'm just gonna try something here. Let's just try to flush the cache, if that's one. No, okay, but anyway, it's here, feed. We're gonna copy this link, and we call it Planet Drupal, right? And this is okay, and we can import right away actually. So there is a problem with importing right away actually, and that's that we want to start adding the AI rules now. So when I add the AI rules, I'm gonna have to resave everything, but that's fine. So that is setting up the content types and setting up the initial import. Okay, so before we continue, I just have a retraction to make. Instead of settings, it should be config here, because this is a config. So otherwise the OpenAI won't work basically. So what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna start adding stuff with the AI Interpolator basically. So what I want to do is take each of these URLs. So if we go to the this URL, I want to read the article, what it's about, and then I want to, based on this, try to figure out, is this something that X person would be interested, Y person would be interested, so we can partition this up in the future for personalized podcasts. I'm also going to put a category on it, and based on this basically get an initial idea of what could be interesting to put into the initial podcast. So I'm gonna start by extending and adding the taxonomy module. So this is a category module, and I'm gonna add a vocabulary here, a category basically called Drupal topic. So these are the topics that we can basically categorize the content into. So I already have an idea, as you see it pre-fills even, because I did actually do this one time trying out. So we add just a lot of type of categories that could be interesting to split this up into, and I'm sure I will add more later. So I mean, this is a process that you have to perfect. So in general, I think that the initial podcast will be pretty crummy, to be honest, and then later we can try to perfect it as much as possible. But the important thing is I will try to make this completely automized. So now I added a lot. We can just click edit and list here, and you can see all the topics we added, right? The next point then is that we go to the content type. No, The next topic is that next point is that I want to get the custom field, not costume, custom field module and install that, because the advantage with the custom field, there's many advantages with the module by itself, because you can actually store multi-values or complex fields without having to create a field type programmatically. But the advantage connected to the AI Interpolator is that you can save a lot of money, because it costs money, of course, to do queries to OpenAI. So if you can make a query where you give the whole body as context and ask it many questions instead of just one question and do it over and over again, it's nice if we can add it into one query. And this is something we can do with the custom field. So we're gonna get this, and then we're gonna install it. So it's custom field, and now then we can go to structure, content types, podcast, manage fields. Sorry, not podcasts, we are on new still. So the first thing we need to do before we add new fields is that we need to have context. So I'm just gonna click here, edit. Oh, I don't know why this was enabled, but we're gonna enable it, but we're gonna choose the ScrapingBot crawler rule, because we're gonna take the link and crawl this into the HTML. So we're gonna take the URL as the base field, right? And the next thing we're gonna do then is that we're gonna choose that we want to use Chrome. So we want to make sure that we can scrape React or Angular or other websites that require JavaScript to render, and wait for network, because maybe someone set it up in JavaScript and it's not set up correctly, so it's waiting for a lot of network, or it has a lot of analytics and stuff, ads running in the background that takes time. Proxy countries, United States makes sense. I'm sitting in Europe, and I know sometimes I go to American websites and they don't have a European audience that's big enough to manage the hellhole that can be GDPR. So because of that, they just block it. So it's better we scrape from US, because usually from US you have no problems watching European websites. Crawler mode is article segmentation. So what you can do here, you can take the raw dump of the whole website, and that just creates too much noise because it adds the menu and footer and sidebars and stuff. You could, in theory, if you know the HTML selector, take that, but since we're fetching feeds from different websites, there's no way we can use a HTML selector. So there is this nice readability plugin that comes from Mozilla, so from Firefox basically, where you can say, I just want to read the main content of this article. I don't want to see all the other crap. I just want the text. This is the same algorithm, so it just takes it out for you. We set weight to a low value, so 50 in this case, to make sure this happens before any other interpolator can run. And then I'm gonna add later to qcron, but I will set it to batch now, so we can actually provoke this from the GUI to make sure that it actually works. And then when we see it works, I'm gonna switch over to qcron job. We do save this, and after we save this, we can add our first rule then. So we take reference, taxonomy term, and Drupal topic, we call this. Save this. This can be unlimited, because as you saw in the topics, you can have a post from Drupal Association about backend accessibility. So that's 3 different rules, right? We're gonna enable the AI Interpolator in this case as well. Oh, we have to set the vocabulary to Drupal topic, and the rule OpenAI taxonomy. The base field is HTML, so we base this on the HTML. I'm just going to inspect this and basically copy this. I will make a module for this later, so you have these prepared. So based on the context, text shows up. No, choose all the categories from the category context that fits this text. Gives the value options command and the context. So it's basically asking GPT to do this now. In this case, I'm gonna set batch. It's okay, I think, to use GPT 3.5 Turbo. It's smart enough to categorize, and this saves a lot of money. So we're just gonna save this, and then we can just try this on one of the contents. I'm just opening this in a new tab here. So how this works is that if this is empty, wait, I'm gonna also fix the order of these. So we take manage form field. There's, first of all, there's a lot of stuff that I'm not, oh, publish date is interesting though, but published is not interesting, stick it, because we're not gonna use this in the CMS, so we not care about all these fields. Then publish date and URL will come from the feed, so we put them in the top right, and then HTML Drupal topic will be under. So it looks a little bit nicer because this is pre-filled thanks to the feeds, and the AI Interpolator will now fill in the HTML. Oh, I see one thing we should fix first. Content authoring text format, and we want to add a text format that's called full HTML. Authenticated users can use this, and I see another thing I need to do here. So I want to see this in a CK editor field, so a WYSIWYG field, so it looks like how you can basically see the website. So if I go back and configure now, I can choose CK editor as the text editor, right? I'm just gonna pull some of these stuff here so we can control. I mean, I'm not gonna edit this anyway, but it's nice to have this rule available, because this should basically allow any HTML that is not script and style tags, because in theory that could be a security threat, of course. I mean, I could in theory also hide this field so it's never rendered either on the front end or the back end. We just do that. Oh, did I? Style we don't need, sorry. So, and then if we go back to manage form display, click on, well, manage display, by the way, we can just remove HTML and stuff here. Just keep that so it's never exposed. In HTML, we go in and just set that full HTML is available here, because now you're gonna see then if we go back to the content, this becomes a CK editor field, which is nicer. And then you see there's Drupal topic, and this also looks funny because there's not so many. What we can do is that we make it a checkbox instead. That makes much more sense, and I chose the wrong one again. It should be news, manage form display. We do checkboxes. Save it, because then it looks a little bit nicer with the checkboxes. And in theory now, if I didn't have the AI Interpolator, I could go, you know, do this manually. So I go in here and I see, okay, this has to be the content, right? And paste it in and then read it and try to figure out, oh, this is about a podcast, about general news, right? Or something like that. So, but I don't want to do that, because I want the AI Interpolator to do this automatically. So instead I just click save and it starts working. And now you see that it's doing it in batch mode. So this is what we're gonna change to doing in cron job later, right? So now it's going to ScrapingBot, asking that to basically scrape this website, and then trying to figure out taxonomy on top of that. So let's see. It takes very long time. Why would it take so long time? I maybe should check so I got the keys correct here. Let me see here. Text editor. That took too long time, I have a feeling. Let's see. No HTML found. So maybe ScrapingBot is not set up correctly. Or we try this. Just try another one to see if the same thing happens there. No, that works. So it could be certain websites might have blockers basically from automated traffic, which is nice, right? No, this also got no HTML found, right? Or which one did I save? No, this one. So something is wrong here. I'm just gonna check again on HTML. ScrapingBot crawler from the URL. Use Chrome wait for network. Maybe we'll try without wait for network. Just gonna see if that works better. We just remove this. So I should actually write there, if there's no HTML found, it should not set any categories, of course. Let's see if this works better. But anyway, I'm gonna open here and this, so I'm checking just outside of the window here. So I set the rule correctly here. So ScrapingBot API key, ScrapingBot username. I'm just gonna check here. AI Interpolator ScrapingBot settings, which is username and API key. Username, API key, ScrapingBot username, ScrapingBot API key. That should be correct. So let's see. So there was the drop times there. Nope. Just let's try on another one. Droptica. See if this works. So we can see, try to figure out why this isn't working. No HTML found. So something goes wrong there. Anyway, first thing first, or no, that's actually fine. When it says no HTML found, we can add a boolean later that takes care of making mark those, because there are stuff where you can't just basically scrape it. But I'm gonna find out why this isn't working. So I cut there because I needed to figure out why it's not working, and I'm just being stupid. This should be .settings, because the file is called .settings.yaml, so I didn't even follow what I said there myself. And now we're gonna try just this and see if it works better, hopefully. Okay, so I clicked back there, which is not good. We do this, save. Let's see if this works better now. Let's close this. So that might have worked better. Yeah. So now it's got the HTML here and it has set categories. So it's talking about the best college websites on Drupal. It has marked this as Drupal 10. Let's just search here, Drupal 10. Yeah. So it's mentioned developers focused on a, yeah. I wouldn't maybe set this to development, but I guess development versus for developers is different. Front-end, new modules, tutorial. Let's see, why did it say SEO? Because it's just saying that so here comes prompt engineering. We need to create a better prompt here for sure. This prompt sucks. Let's go back to our Drupal topic, and we're gonna do this a lot better. Based on the content, I choose all categories that fits the text. So you are a Drupal. So this you can actually set in role, but I think it's better to set here usually. You are a Drupal expert that is looking at articles about Drupal. Based on your experience and the context of the article, choose all the categories from that be precise and strict. So this is just a start. I'm gonna maybe perfect this auto screen as well, because you might have to give examples what is what basically. But anyway, while you're doing it, how you can test this is you just uncheck everything, because then it's gonna run again, right? And then we check if it got better. So now it's development and tutorial. So I wouldn't call this a tutorial at all. So let me see. It doesn't say the word tutorial. School? No. So we're just gonna fix it up even better. A tutorial is a guide that goes from goes through steps how to build something, set up, develop something. If you do not know what to set general use, develop. So development should only be set when there are code examples or the article is mainly about a piece of code or a Drupal module or a piece of code or developing a Drupal module, I think. So let's try this then. So this is the the problem of AI, which makes it pretty fun to work with, but also frustrating, that it's not deterministic, because if I do SQL queries, I know exactly what to do, right? And I know exactly the results already when I start planning. I kind of know how to solve it and how to do it. With AI, it's not deterministic, which means that you have to like prompt it like a junior intern or something until you get it right. So now we got it right. This is general news. This is just about like 11 best university websites on Drupal. So we're just gonna take another one, the accessible Tableau integration module. So this is for sure about accessibility, right? It's about yeah, let's see, we have to read the article also. So I'm gonna save this, and we're gonna see first of all, it's about the Tableau integration module. So I guess this might go under development as well. Yeah, development new module. Oh well, how can it not go under accessibility? And it's about accessibility. That is very peculiar. So we might have to give more anything that mentions accessibility should set the accessibility category, because basically if that word is mentioned, it is interesting for people that works with accessibility, right? So I'm gonna reset this and we're gonna run it again. And of course, one option here, instead of doing better prompting, is that you do GPT-4 that understands better. So now it did accessibility and development, and that is probably true. I should also add, so it's actually cheaper to add a very long prompt for GPT 3.5, but because it's so much cheaper. So actually doing a lot more explanation and sending it to GPT 3.5 is cheaper than just doing a one-off sentence and then sending to GPT-4. But of course it's easier to do the one-off sentence. But now this is my private money. I'm gonna run this every week, so it costs money for me, so I want it as cheap as possible. To choose a new module category, there has to be some explicit mentioning of that this module is something new. So I just add this, and in this case I guess it doesn't matter, doesn't mention it, so it's okay there actually. Then designing content. So this is a very short text. It will be interesting to see what it sets, but it should set podcast at least, because this is a podcast, right? And they mention podcast in the text, I'm pretty sure. So gonna check general news, sit down. Let's see if it doesn't mention podcast. No, it doesn't mention podcast in the text. So this might be a place where I actually have to set some general development rule. Maybe I can use ECA for it to basically check for parts of the URL. So if this part exists, then maybe it should fill out also the podcast, right? Because they don't mention podcast in the text, so it can't know then when it says we sit down with Greg Dunlap that you know, it's about the podcast. So this I might add later, but at least we have a rough topic now, right? That kind of works, and this is something I'm gonna improve off camera, but as I said, this is a lot like instructing a junior intern what it's supposed to do. So there's nothing in terms of development where I can actually maybe tell you that much more than going to learn more about prompt engineering. So the next thing we're gonna do is the custom field, and these are podcast filters, I guess we can call them. So this is trying to figure out a lot of stuff in one query. So I'm gonna start with a number integer that we call general interest. Then we're gonna add another that is number integer developer interest. So how interesting is this for a developer? Gonna add another number. So I'm gonna rate these like 1 to 10. We're gonna take security interest. We add another that is accessibility interest. So these I can of course add a lot more later. Then what should we else add as rating? So the thing is here we can also add checkboxes, right? So we can set a boolean that sets what do we need to know more to take a decision? Oh yeah, is origin story. So this is gonna ask basically, is origin source, does this seem to be the actual original source of the story, or do they just reiterate some other source? Because if there is some big news happening, so there was this news about like almost every big university in the world uses Drupal, right? And this was big news, so this got reiterated in many blogs, but the only interesting thing to mention there is the original source, right? And they should have the credits for writing it. So that's a typical example of using a boolean there. What we can add already here is that it should summarize. So we take a text long, so it can do this as part of this query as well. So we basically have a short summary, I guess we can call it. Short summary. And that's it. For now, I just save. So you can't really set an AI interpolator until the structure is set, and that's not set until I click Save Settings. but something is wrong here. Did I forget something? No. Oh, you have to click twice, I think, with the custom filters. So the custom field is also not production right yet, so you know. But anyway, now these are all set, which means that you can also here start setting settings for them. And then we're just gonna set minimum 1 to 10, right? Or 0 to 10, actually. Something can be completely out of scope for interest for developers, for instance. And I will probably add a lot of these later, more. So, so we can do this personalized podcast later. But for now, we're just gonna set this, and the text area we don't need WYSIWYG. I think it's just saving a long string for the AI itself, basically. And then we're gonna enable the AI Interpolator. Sorry, I need to drink here so I don't cough. So we're gonna enable the AI custom field. We're gonna use the HTML as no. I will show you something here actually. Just disable this a little bit because the title might make sense to add here. It might have made sense last time as well. So we're gonna add the token module now, so we can do advanced prompting. And advanced prompting basically means that we can use multiple fields or even external entities to do the prompting. And in this case it makes sense because then we can use the title and the article, and the title matters extra much, I guess, in this case, to do a choice about all this stuff, right? And that might actually the podcast problem. So we're actually gonna fix that while we're at it. So let's start with the Drupal topic. I'm just gonna copy all this and then I'm gonna switch to advanced mode. So this is enabled now because I enabled the token module. So what I need to do now is, well, let's see if this works with the taxonomy. I'm not sure because I need the taxonomy values here. Podcast. No, sorry. What was this called? Drupal topic. I'm not sure what this gives back. But we can try this, because if it only gives back the IDs, the AI will not work because it needs the actual names of the taxonomies, right? But we can see, maybe it works. So we're gonna get field HTML here as the context, and we're gonna add article title, right? This is then going to be this one, no title. So let's see if this works. We save this. I'm not sure if this taxonomy thing is gonna work. I mean, you could in theory list them manually, but that sucks when you add them something. You have to add it there as well, right? We just save this. No, it added it to general news anyway, because it can't read the advanced field in this case. So the advanced field won't actually work on this, which is a pity. I will have to think about a solution for this actually. So we switch back to base mode, and this should be context. We don't have an article title, and this we can get from here, comma separated values, otherwise it's the same. So this is back to this, but for the podcast filters we can definitely set this then. So well, let's see, I'm not sure if I have actually advanced mode here. Yes, we do, because this is a little bit special, because this has a overlying prompt, and then it also has per field a minimal prompt, an example how to how the value should be, right? So you do something called one-shot prompting, I think it's called, one-shot learning maybe it is, to make sure that this is understandable basically. So we're gonna do this. Let's copy this actually. No, this is a long one. Based on the article title and the article text, figure out, we start, you are an expert at the CMS Drupal and you are editing a podcast about Drupal news and are figuring out which news of the week to include in the show. To do this, you have a rating system for different target groups of 0 to 10, where 0 means it is of no interest for them and 10 means it is of fundamental interest for them. So actually English is not my native language, as you can hear, so what I could do here, I could actually prompt in Swedish. I'm from Sweden, right? But so I'm not sure fundamental is the of critical interest for them, right? I'm not sure what the correct word is there. Also answer if, what did we have? Also try to figure out if this is the origin source of the news or if they are reporting someone else news. If there are no sources in the text, you can assume they are the origin. So I'm actually gonna put this on a new row here. Then I also want you to write a summary of maximum 4 sentences about the article and why it would be of interest to report on it, if at all. So also here, try to filter out texts that are just to promote the own business or that are too general about Drupal, or that are so general about Drupal that anyone that knows Drupal has no interest in them. Remember that this podcast is for people that uses Drupal fairly often, something like that, right? So based on the article data, figure out all these data points. So article title is, let's see here, title, and article text, we just feed it here, then the HTML value I think we can take, so it actually strips off the HTML, and then we have to set, then I'm going to use batch here by the way as well, general interest, how interested is the general Drupal professional about this news? I just set a 6 between 0 to 10. Read right here. Is a Drupal developer about this news? How interested is a Drupal security advisor? I don't know. Drupal accessibility expert about this news. I should not say article. It's articles, it's not news. 7 is origin source. Is this the original source of the news? Answer 0. Answer 1 if it is, otherwise 0. Write 4. Write summary of 4 sentences. So I'm just reiterating, but this, in the end, this is creating a big JSON blob and asking for a big JSON blob back, and that's why we need these examples. This article is about the token module and to install it, how to add new tokens to it. It's interesting for developers, right? This needs GPT-4, so I'm going to use Turbo Preview for this, save it, and then we're going to try here. So this is a very short text. Here you see all the, by the way, all these things it's going to fill out. Oh, what did I forget here? I forgot something, I'm pretty sure. Batch, should be batch. Maybe I need to run it with a reload. No. Why is this not working? Save. What am I missing here? Could it be that I can't also use the custom code here? I'm just gonna try this then. Where are we here? Let's try base mode then, just to see if that's the problem. Article. So it might be actually that this has a bug in trying to figure out when to use it. In advanced mode, no, so that was not it. What are we missing here? Podcast filters. It has enabled the AI Interpolator. It's using OpenAI custom field base mode on the HTML field, which is filled out. It has batch mode. Just try direct mode. OpenAI moderation. So somehow it could be that it thinks that this is filled in. So I will try to figure out what the issue is here. So it turned out it was actually a bug in the module. This has been fixed now. This will be pushed and a new release will be available when you start doing this yourself. So now I'm gonna try to save it again, and now it should be aware that it needs to save. So now it's doing it, right? And this is on this short podcast text. So the question is if it can actually give a high value there. So I might have to do in the future what I said, basically, that we're gonna listen into the podcast to use this as context as well for the topic and for this rating. So it's still, I mean, it got general interest and developer interest up. Security and accessibility not so much. So I know this is about a great book. Go to Kickstarter and actually buy it. I'm gonna do it, from Greg Dunlap, that was part of creating Drupal 8 and the whole redesign of the config system that we talked about before. So actually read this. So it got okay values actually. It's our origin source, of course. No one is, if someone referenced the podcast, it wouldn't be. And then a short summary what this is about. And this is so little text that the summary is almost the same length, right? So, but we're gonna take a longer thing here to try. Oh, this one I saved just to try it out, and you can see this is about accessibility, super high. Developers are interested in this as well, general interest in this. This one I would say should not have so high interest, except for maybe general interest in, but we will see. I mean, you can talk about security and accessibility. It's probably a little bit interesting because, of course, if big universities are using it, it means that Drupal is accessible and usable, right? So general interest is up, security was not so, accessibility is up. I don't know if it actually measures, yeah, okay, accessibility, so that's why. And there is also developer interest. So something actually I might do later if we're gonna personalize. If you're someone who cares about accessibility, it should probably in the podcast talk about this article from accessibility and maybe this specific, Université of Paris, for instance. So anyway, we have a summary as well. And the reason, by the way, I have these summaries is because there's gonna be an overreaching editor later choosing the topics based on a lot of features. But the next step I want to do now is I want to actually create a view for this where I can get a little bit overview of everything I've done and what maybe didn't get good ratings and so on. Oh, before I do this though, I just gonna do something here, and that is basically say if it returns no HTML, or if the article says no HTML or something similar, and just set rating 1 on everything and do not summarize. This should, oh okay, I'm a topic now, but yeah, we can do the same here, something similar. Then here we have a failover, it will set general news, right? But on the podcast filters it should set low interest on everything, so it's not gonna take that, right? But anyway, I want to create a view now so I get some admin overview. So there is the views module for this. We're gonna enable that in the UI, and then you're gonna see that the content by itself actually already got better, right? So in theory I could fix this one, but I'm gonna create a new view for this instead that we call news overview. That is a content of type news. Gonna create a page called news overview that's under admin content slash no use overview is going to be a table, can show 50 pages. We're going to create a menu link, so it's going to be under administration, content, we add it there, news overview, save it, start by setting the permission to news, edit any content we can use as the permission. We show the title, and then we're gonna show the topic. We're gonna, so this is a very quick way of setting up a administration view if you haven't worked with Drupal before. So you just set which fields you want, which permissions, how it should look, which filters you want, and so on, and it does this. So I'm gonna have link to delete content, edit content. We're gonna use something called the drop button to have those, and then we're gonna do the custom field, which is, what did I even call that, filter. So we start with we don't call it Drupal, just topic. We take this, and this should be excluded from display because I want this to show up in the drop button. Edit, exclude from display, podcast filters. We're gonna start with just showing general interest. So we're gonna set hidden on developer interest, security interest, hidden. So this is a little bit annoying with using this, but especially in a table view, right? But that's just how you have to do. So we can basically see the general interest. Just write general so the table doesn't become too big. And drop button should be called actions, and I'm just gonna restructure those. So edit comes before delete because I don't want to delete by mistake. Link to edit content, where is that? Podcast is, wait, did I call that wrong here? Podcast filters, that should be link to edit content. So and what, podcast filters, that's general, Drupal topic is topic, that seems about right. Then I want to be able to filter on topics, so we do a drop down filter, we expose it so anyone can choose it, and then we just write topic here. We just write topic here so it's short and concise. We don't create a super big URL. We don't care if it's published. We don't care about sort criteria. We're gonna use table sort for that. So we click setting here, that we can sort on general. Oh, I forgot something very important here. Publish date. Of course, we need to show, we just show it in short date format. This should come directly after the title. Go to settings, we should be able to sort on this, descending, and it's the default sort. Save this. If we check here now, there is news overview, and we have our field. Oh, so I see right away general interest. We're not supposed to show the label here. I just apply this, we reload, and you can see that we can show like the topics here. We don't want to link the topics. We have no use of this taxonomy link page. Oh, sorry, that was not that. So we have the topics, the general rating, the link to edit content should be excluded. I thought I did that. Save. and then we can edit and delete. And then we're just gonna add the other ratings here now. So we have to add again podcast filters. We're gonna sort this by developer interest if you want to sort it. This is hidden. Oh, what happened there? This is hidden. Developer interest we want to show, but no label. Oh, sorry, no, this is hidden. 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 And we had developer interest here. Apply this. Rearrange. You see, we call this developer. Save it just to see. Then we have the developer interest there. I think I need to fix that. Fix that prompt, by the way. That's way too high. Podcast filters. So this is a little bit annoying having to do this. I think this has a bug in it, obviously. So security interest, hide general interest, we hide developer interest, but we show security interest without a label. Call this security, by the way, because then we're gonna have this nice view where we can see everything basically. And get a nice overview. I'm gonna add another podcast filter that is then accessibility. Wait, let's apply this first because there seems to be some bug there. That's sorted by accessibility interest. We hide general interest. Wait, we hide developer interest. We had hide security interest. Hide accessibility interest. No, sorry. That should be seen but with a hidden label. And now we're just gonna push those up there. Save, reload here, and you can see them here, right? Okay, so we have a good view here as well. I don't think we have to show if that's origin source. And you see I have filters, so I can click accessibility and just save. And here I can also see which one didn't run then. So, but in the future, of course, or that's what I'm gonna do now as the last step of this part, is that the Drupal topic, well, first I'm gonna, so what I'm gonna do here, set this to qcron, so it actually runs on the cron job instead of when I'm saving it. And then we're gonna also do podcast filters here, and I'm just gonna fix up this a little bit to try it first. Set over 5 when it includes tutorials or code. Set only over 5. So we save this, and then I'm just gonna, I don't understand how this would be 8, for instance, so we're just gonna remove all this stuff so it runs this again. Then we're just gonna see if I get a better developer score, and then I need to tweak this, of course, later, but then you get an idea how you can tweak these. And if that is, yeah, developer score 1 instead, that's very good. Now we just try this, if I can find something about this maybe. Yeah, this one is good. I'm just gonna try to save this because this feels, oh, if I want to save this, I have to turn on Drupal topic to be batch mode again, just so it saves that one as well. Just reloading, saving. Let's close this. We don't need that anymore. So now you see it runs all three of them because this didn't have anything. So it got developer interest 9. Perfect. Because this is of course super interesting for a developer, how you can set up SSO with Drupal. So we have that. One thing I'm gonna do now, by the way, this might not be later, but I'm gonna also configure here in system basic site system. So this is my first page. So if I visit the website, I see this, and I think if I go just with if I log out, I'm gonna get access denied, which is fine because I'm not supposed to have access to that, right? So good. One thing I saw there, by the way, we should do right away: configure people account settings. People should not be able to register accounts on this. This is not an open website. So I just do this. So administrators only can create account. Maybe I'm gonna add account later if you're gonna have personalized podcasts. So you have to get an account for that, but let's see. That's a later question. So that ends this part. We have set up the news. We have basically used AI to figure out, to have an initial thought about if this is an interesting article at all. So now we're gonna go to the next part where we're gonna create the podcast basically. So what I'm gonna do in between there, I'm gonna just make sure that everything is resaved, so all these numbers fills out, because that's what, oh no, before we do that, so you just see it, is that I'm gonna go here and set this back now to qcron then, because that's how we want to run it, this and the podcast filter and the HTML fetching. So this happens automatically when an article is added, right? So, and since this is actually a new month now, I can just, for the fun of it, give you an idea of the costs here, because we ran like 4 articles and we have run it over and over, right? Let me see here. Is it under personal? No, it's usage. There we go. Just so you can see, yeah, we're up to almost a cent. No, 7 cents, almost 8 cents. So you see, it's not expensive. Well, it depends on how much you create, of course, but I'm gonna be able to handle the cost of this podcast, even if it's free, and I'm not gonna put commercials on it, I promise, because this is, in the end, not my content. I'm just setting up a service so you can basically find articles that real persons took time to write. Yeah, so that ends this portion of the tutorial. So now they are filled in, as you can see. I will show you, because I actually added another field here. So there are some problems with this also, I can say right away. I will show you when it comes to drop times. So the drop times has certain type of content, it's interviews, I think, where it basically does not recognize what is the content. And this is solvable. There is a hook that you can hook into, and I'm gonna fix this for the drop time, so they're gonna show up. But since this tutorial is only about the stuff that I can control without actually doing any coding, I will not touch that. So this is something I will fix later. I'm gonna try to set up everything without coding in this case. So anyway, what I added then, well, first of all, when it came to Drupal topic, I had to add a lot more to the prompt to give examples. to make it more diverse, because it wasn't setting back and front end, for instance. It wasn't setting core, for instance, so I had to redo that, resave everything. When it came to, oh no, not podcast filters, that actually worked fairly well. Well, there is one thing I added, and that was pushing even more that this is a podcast for people that knows Drupal, and if there are like commercial text that's done for SEO, like how to upgrade to Drupal 10 and stuff, where it's clear that the company wants to sell their services, it should try to not give them so high rating. But then also what's important was to get the original author, because we want to give credit, of course, and there are a lot of articles where it says the author, right? So I'm not talking about the host name or like the company or the blog behind it. I'm talking about the actual person writing something. So I added a string field, and there is a ScrapingBot author crawler that you can use for this. Just but we also want the source, right? So now I'm gonna do something that even if I did the AI Interpolator, I would not do it this way, because I'm a developer. I would write the one line of code that's needed for this, but I'm gonna show you how you can do this without coding. So the problem is this, right? We have this is Lullabot, right? So this comes from Lullabot, but I mean, we could in theory prompt the AI to give this back, but in this case we actually just want the source here, so we want like lullabot.com, right? So what exists is this AI Interpolator extractor. So I'm just gonna download this and install it, and then we can use a regex to basically extract this from the link. So I will just let's see here, do drush pm enable, oops, I just need the name, Interpolator extractor. So let's close some stuff here. So I have installed this. So this is installed. Then what we can do is create a new field here that we call original host, plain text plain. I assume it's not gonna be over 255 characters. We are gonna enable this to regex extractor on the URL, and we need to put in a regex here. This we can do direct because this is so fast that you're not gonna notice. So I have a regex that I have tried here. This is what this is linking to. It's a great site for trying out regex. So I'm just gonna copy this. This doesn't copy with the slash and the slash, and this should be IM, and we save this. And now then, if I reload, there's gonna be an original host field. If I save this, click edit again, hopefully it becomes lullabot.com, right? So once again, I'm gonna resave everything, and then we continue. So I did resave everything now. It's there. Our next step is that we're gonna have the podcast choose which one of these to use in the weekly podcast. How I'm gonna solve this now is the site builder way. I had to think a lot about how to actually solve this without coding, but I think I have a solution for this. So this is what I'm gonna show you now. This is not how it's gonna run later, because I'm gonna add code basically, because I'm gonna add a lot more news input stuff. But for this purpose we're talking about now, I guess it's okay. So we're just gonna create a view that we call all possible news So this is gonna list all the news that we can use. We're not gonna use introduction, I realized, for how we do it here, by the way. So this was just unnecessary to add. So we're gonna have an unformatted list of fields. We want to show everything, so we don't use a pager. This is gonna be scraped by something called a simple crawler. So this I already installed, by the way. So this is another way of using, it's like ScrapingBot, but it's for server-side rendering, which I know it is in this case. It can also run against localhost, which is pretty nice. And here we basically now need to output this in the most textual way possible. So as little markup as we possibly can get. So we start by adding all the stuff that we need here. So we need Drupal topic, right? We need original author, original host, podcast filters we need in multiple ways, I guess. The URL we need for sure. Did we forget something here? Publishing date. Publish date we need. So, and with topic we just don't want to link it. Original author. Wait, oh, I forgot. We should exclude this for this from display. I will show you why. Gonna exclude this also from display, but in this case we're also gonna rewrite the result and just give back the summary, nothing else here. I'm gonna exclude this as well, exclude URL, and here we want show URL as plain text. We remove this, apply, and then title we take exclude from display. Drupal topics exclude from display. So you see nothing is here actually. I can also remove publish, by the way, here. Sort criteria should be rating, I guess. General interest and descending, so it shows the one with the highest general interest first, and same here, general interest we can do that it should be greater or equal to 5, otherwise it makes no sense to choose it. And we have to output something, right? So we just use custom text in this case. So we're just going to use a lot of replacements here to do title, right? Topics, and then author. And you can see these has new lines. When they are rendered in HTML, it might look like they're on the same line, but these new lines will be kept. So when we fetch that, they are there, which is really important actually. Summary we do last, actually. Publish date, URL. Oops, I forgot something there. And summary, which we will use this for. And then we're also, do an extra row, and we're gonna add a lot of dashes here. So we separate each basically. And now you see it doesn't look very great here, right? Oh, the summary was wrong there, by the way. Forgot. No, I forgot it in here, I guess then. Sorry, in here. Rewrite results, it's missing there. See if it looks better now. Yeah. So here it doesn't look good, but if we look at the actual source code, we can see that it's actually pretty good text, and it's new line split as well. What I want to do is also remove views row classes here. We don't want field wrapper elements, so it actually becomes less and less HTML, so it's just a div with everything. This is good. So, and this is on admin all possible news. So what we're gonna do now then is that first we can check this out. So that looks good. We're gonna go to structure, content types, podcast, and we're gonna start adding the stuff we need here. So this is always gonna go get from this link. So this will be podcast default link. Call this one external disabled. I mean, it is not external, but I have to give the whole value here, not the enable AI Interpolator. Default value is what I want to set. So we have this as a default value always. The next thing we're gonna add here then is plain text, text plain long, selectable news we had here. And this is then gonna use the enable AI Interpolator simple crawler. Base mode get from this. Strip tags. We take article segmentation and we set a lower value in this case. We can do direct in this case. And this is gonna be qcron later, of course, but for now, just to try it out, we just add a new podcast here then. So podcast 1st March 2024. Save, and we got back something that is a text that is definitely readable by AI. So this is great. So the next step, wait, we can take away this and we open another tab here, is that we're gonna take editorial selected news. So now it's gonna select some of these news, right? And for that I'm gonna use plain text, text plain. I'm just gonna get the titles, I guess. No, let's take a text plain long. And we're gonna enable AI Interpolator to string long base mode and get from the selectable news. So based on the context, give me back a big blob of all the titles of the chosen segments for the podcast. Right, and context. So now we of course have to instruct it better. That's just what we want in the end, basically. Big blob of all the titles with a new line after them. Example, this is title 1, this is title 2, and now, so you are an editor for a podcast for Drupal. Let's see here what we have to go with, right? For a weekly podcast about the CMS. I can't spell. About the CMS Drupal that available to you in the context is all the possible segments that we can generate a podcast about. We want around 8 to 12 segments. Can you choose the most interesting for a Drupal audience? Make sure to have a diversity of topics. And host. Well, what did we call it? Host, yeah. So that's it. We're gonna do no, we do batch on this. GPT-4 turbo preview, set 99 because this is needed for some of the other stuff. We have the context. Let's see how well this works then. So we take this, we're gonna save this now and see if it chooses some of them then, or if I need to specify more. So one important thing to think about here is that in the AI Interpolator you can ask it to give back multiple values, which would mean that it creates multiple text areas if you have unlimited field, right? That's why I wrote big blob, because I just wanted to give back one result with all of it inside. So here, perfect. It gave back exactly how I wanted it. So we have the editorial selected news. And now what we want to do basically from this is that we want to generate a podcast. So we're almost on the final step now, right? So I'm just gonna create a new field here that I call the dialogue. That is a Elevenlabs field, and I'm gonna set this to unlimited because we should be able to generate back and forth. Elevenlabs, and we're just gonna enable AI Interpolator in this case. We are gonna set enable, well, we don't need enable batching because we're gonna have all this running on cron later, and we're gonna use advanced mode for this now. So what we want to do is this. Wait, I'm just gonna copy this because this is very specific. So I'm gonna choose a voice later in this case, but I think I have one that's called Freeman here somewhere, that is like the Elevenlabs version of Morgan Freeman. So I'm just gonna copy this because we need this to be added. Oh no, now we have a problem here, because we cannot use multiple tokens in this case, because it will not, well, we can. So I'm going to show you something extremely advanced now then, because this will of course be replaced with an actual ID. So I am elevenlabs.io. I'm gonna log in here now. Oh, I was logged in. We're gonna take voices and find Freeman and click copied voice ID. So this is basically what this placeholder is replacing. So we have to say this. And then we're gonna give a name to our newscaster. Sorry, I just need to drink something so I don't start coughing here. So sorry, it took some time. So this newscaster's name will be Drupal son. That's nice. And then we're gonna do based on the possible news sources, pick out the news sources from the selected news sources by title and generate news segments about them. You are the host, Drupal son. that is an informative and very what should we say, very informative and very clear communicator. Write the script so that it has a natural flow for each of the news items. Mention author if available, and mention source, which is under the host label. It says author here, right? Author. Also make sure to mention the title after each news item. Make sure to mention that links to the news item is in the show notes. So pick out the news searches and select the news search by title. The speaker, because you are on podcast editor writing a podcast script. The title of the podcast is Drupal Nation Weekly. No, Drupal Weekly News. It's written by AI. Also add an intro where Droopy presents himself and the podcast's name, and also where he mentions that it's AI, that it's completely end-to-end AI generated. Also with the help of the AI Interpolator module. I have to make some advertisement for my own open source module here. At the end, say thank you for listening, and that you can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. The level of this we use. So here we have to now give them possible news sources. Oh, let's do selected news sources first. Selected news sources. Which we get from here. Selected news. No, that's the other one we want. This is editorial selected news, right? So, and possible news sources. Selected news sources. Okay, and yeah, I'm gonna do QCron for this, of course, later, but for now I have a very long timeout, so I can set this to direct. In this case, I'm gonna save. This is now gonna take forever, so I'm just gonna do this. Click edit, I'm gonna save. Now you see there's a dialogue here. I'm gonna save, and then there will be a cut, and I will tell you how long it took basically. Okay, so we have something here. It's like 6 minutes, which is a nice time, I think. I did change the speaker, so the speaker was very annoying. I showed something called Scott Parker, it's called, the voice. And
good afternoon, dear listeners, and welcome to Drupal Weekly News. This is your host, Droopy Drupalson.
Yeah, you can hear, I actually added in the prompt some changes here. So if we go to dialogue and go to the prompt, there is, I added that he should say the today's date, because that's of course important, and also maybe mention very close by, mention like if there's in the Christmas season now, he's gonna say happy holidays and stuff like that, right? So anyway, we're gonna create a new field now where we're gonna put the final file. So this is gonna be podcast file. So this is the file that you're actually going to play, because if you just use the Elevenlabs module, it's basically just gonna generate like a virtual player that plays MP3s after each other, but that you can't use in a real podcast, right? So we create another field that allows MP3 that has unlimited number of values. We save this. We could fix file directories and stuff here, I guess. And then we go into dialogue, and what's important to choose here is audio generation. We choose a field. We want to do it in FFmpeg. So here's the option that you could get byte scale as well. And then we can add an intro, outro, and a soundscape. So we're gonna generate that in a second, but we're gonna try this first. And before I do this, I don't want the virtual player to show up. So I want you to actually use the podcast file. And this is going to be audio and playback controls, right? So we save that, and then I can save here. So now there's going to be in the end here a podcast file field. That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm tired now. I've been sitting all day with this. And we have it here, right?
Good afternoon, dear listeners, and welcome to Drupal's high-quality content creation and leveraging Drupal's.
Yeah, so we have the final file there. But now comes the cool stuff. We want to create some audio mix in this as well, right? Yeah, so what we're gonna use for that is something called Suno AI. So I've already played around with this because I don't want to sit and spend a lot of time where you have to basically look at me generating this. So I can just say what I did. I just asked ChatGPT to create lyrics and what kind of style of music is good for that. And then I just put that in here in custom mode, where I added the lyrics, the style of music, and we got, I think
to the beat of code, where the
this one.
Drupal tales unfold. Here's the weekly news, stories fresh and bold.
So this is AI generated. They don't have API, unfortunately. Otherwise, a cool thing was to be have like an intro music that sings about the current topics, but not in this case. It's not gonna be that cool. So I have a fixed intro for now, and to do this, we can just click intro here, and we just upload. I took this Drupal weekly fade MP3, and we're just gonna save that, and then we can edit here, click delete, remove, save, and hopefully we get this with intro now. Let's see.
To the beat of code, where the Drupal tales unfold. Here's the week.
Oh, we have it with an intro, right? So now we actually we're finished with the podcast part. The next part is that we need to write show notes, and this is fairly simple. So what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna create a new field called show notes, and I think that has to be text plain. I'm not sure if you're allowed to have HTML in show notes, probably not. Anyway, I do it in text plain, and we take enable AI Interpolator, and I'm actually gonna go back here because I want to steal a little bit here from the dialogue, because we're gonna need to reuse some of the prompt here. And we're gonna do advanced mode, and then we're gonna write this. You are a podcast, writing a podcast show notes. It's written by AI. The speaker is the host, Droopy Drupalson. Let's see here. I copied out some stuff that was important here. So take all, select the news sources and match on title, and generate show notes about all them in the order this. You can mention the title and the link, and then a new line. Also add an intro with a 3-sentence summary of the show today, including the date. So in a human readable form without the time. We just need to remove this, and I think that should be enough. Oh, I maybe have to say put them into one blob value to make sure that they're not trying to create multiple, right? I will do GPT-4 for this, batch, sure. This is gonna be QCron later as always, but I just want to try it now, right? So we click edit. There we have the show notes. We see if it can create show notes for us, and basically show that they are correct. Later on, I'm also gonna use the AI Interpolator DeepGram. We show that here to get the start time of each section, so you can actually show the sections as well, but that's for later. So let's see, here we go. Droptica, and they have the URLs here, right? Pretty cool. So we have show notes, easy enough. I think, no, what we're gonna have to add is another content type called podcast information. I guess you have to actually invoke this into the XML. and this can be published. That is the information about the actual show. So let's start with, I mean, I can write the show introduction myself. Not everything has to be AI generated, but we're gonna do this image prompt. So just to get some more AI stuff in here, we're gonna have a formatted text that is the, no, I guess it has to be plain as well. Description. That I'm gonna put in, and then in the image prompt I'm gonna say we take description based on the context text, generate an abstract image generation prompt about this podcast show named Drupal Weekly News. Context we do 95, so this runs first, save it, then we create an image field. So this is gonna be the podcast image, continue. I don't need alt, enable AI Interpolator. We're gonna do DALL-E to generate this from the image prompt. Context, so that's the actual image prompt. We do batch, DALL-E 3, best quality. I mean, I could save money and do this in ChatGPT, but I just want to show you that we can optimize this as well, because I don't think each episode will have one. Otherwise that would be even better. For optimization, of course, but in this case I don't think it's like that. So we take podcast information, Drupal Weekly News. The Drupal Weekly News podcast is an auto-generated podcast by AI using the AI Interpolator module for Drupal. It talks about news the last week in Drupal. Yeah, I guess that's enough. We save, see if it generates something here. I can write something better later maybe. Oh, and there's something I'm gonna add, by the way. I can do that right away. If we go to our view, all possible news, I actually have to add that the publishing date should be the last week, of course. So it should be greater or equal to -7 days, because otherwise it will show everything later, which is crappy. So this was bad prompt. Let's see. Okay, so there's something called prompt perfect. I will show you that as well. So there's AI Interpolator for everything, where you can actually get perfect prompts via this. So it takes a mediocre prompt and make a better prompt. So I will instead do a podcast host with the head of the Drupal icon talking loudly and proudly into a microphone. His body is that of a robot. We save. Let's see how this works. So this will take a little bit time. This we can close, this we can close, this we can close. Yeah, okay. That was his body wasn't even a robot. What is that? His body is that with the head of a Drupal icon and the body of a robot. It should look like an oil painting. Maybe that works better. So we're generating this now, and then I will do another cut, and then I will start with the XML, and after that I will host it. I will not show how to set up hosting. That you have to figure out by yourself. Yeah, this is much better. Makes no sense, the text as always, but this is cool. Then you know it's AI generated as well, so I'm not trying to hide this. So yeah, the next step now is to create XML then. So before actually I start with the podcast, I just realized there's another important thing we have to add in between, and that's that currently I'm creating the podcast manually, right? So I'm adding a podcast here, but we need to automate this. And this is something I mean, depending on how many workflows you want, there is the really awesome module ECA, Event Condition Action. So for everyone that knows rules from Drupal 7, this is this on steroids basically. So I'm gonna use this because I don't want to write code, as I said before. So we're gonna get the ECA module, and well, let's start with that one. We also need a modeler. I don't think that's included, so I'm gonna download this as well. And there's a lot of modules needed here, so I'm gonna click extend actually. So let's see here, we go to ECA and we need the base, we need bpmn.io, so that's a graphical interface basically for modeling. We need core, content because we're gonna create content automatically, and we need user because we need to set the user also. So we're gonna install this, and then under configuration workflow you're gonna see ECA, and here we're gonna set up a new model that we yes, add new model. And what we want to do here then is we start with the event, and the event we're looking for is cron. We're just gonna name it cron job started, and this we have to set. My idea is that we run this every Monday, so I'm gonna set 0 0. No, it's gonna run, so this is UTC, we say 15 because that's late enough for Europe, early enough for late enough for Europe, early enough for USA basically. And let's see if it can take mon as a parameter here, but I guess it should work like the normal, or let's just set a number just to be sure. So mon should be 1, right? And then we're gonna create an event here, and what we need to do is we need to switch the user, because otherwise the current user might not have access to no, it took load. That's not what I wanted. I want to switch user. So switch current user, So we switch user, so we have a user that we know has access to actually generate content, so we switch user to user 1. Then we're also gonna start create podcast. This is then create new, and we call this podcast. So you have to set a token because we're gonna follow a couple of steps here. That's content podcast. Entity label should be Drupal weekly news, and then we can actually use tokens here because I think we need news. We should set a current date here, and we set HTML date. So it should not be published because we need to do all the steps before we publish it basically, and the owner should be 1. And then we need to add a field here. Here, so we need to set the field, set field value, set a link is what we want to do. We don't need to think about this. The field name of this is, what did we actually give it as a field name? Podcast default link, right? So that's this one. .uri, because we want to set the link. We don't save it yet. Well, we could save it, but I will create a save for this as well, just to be certain. And we set this value, and the entity we're using is podcast. And then we're gonna just add another one here that says save entity, and that's just gonna be the podcast. And that is it basically. So now we have set up a job that will, on the cron job Monday 3 o'clock UTC, will create a podcast, and this podcast will then run all the AI interpolators to basically generate the podcasts. So that is that, and good. So that's that. So now we're gonna do the podcast XML, I mean. So let's set up the final step, which is that we need to install this module, that is the podcast RSS feed. So there is this composer command for it that we're gonna run. By the way, these two guys contribute so much to Drupal. Drupal should be so happy for what they're doing. Check this out. Projects maintained. It's a crazy long list. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and install this. And it's installed, right? By the way, if you wonder about this warning message, I turned off cron temporary, so it doesn't actually shoot off while we're still building here. So we have added this. The next step we want to create now is then the actual well, maybe we don't have to call it actual podcast. We're creating a view called podcast RSS that is of type news, because it's the news we want to show, but this is also gonna have the podcast information in it. We don't need to create a page or a block. In this case, we can just click add here, and we take a feed that is a podcast RSS feed. So we're doing it specifically for podcasts. So here we're gonna have to fill out some, we're gonna have to add some fields before we can fill out this basically. And here we take, we're gonna use fields here as well, click cancel, and then we're gonna start adding fields. So we need published date, and I'm gonna have to check whatever date this is that it expects. Podcast XM RSS date format. RSS feed. Here we go. Let's see. So this is from Apple themselves, so this should be correct. Incorrect. Correct date format. Wednesday, 6 July 2000. Okay. And we don't have that here, I guess. Or there we go. Maybe. No, it's not that. So we have to make a custom one then. Where do we have the custom? Yeah, this can be. I'm sitting in Berlin, so I'm just gonna set Berlin. I'm just wondering where is there should be a custom format. Is it not available? There we go. Custom format, and it should be well. Let me go to PHP's time because I don't know all these. No, date, sorry. I don't know all these in my head. And this is in here. It's documented. So we're gonna start with WED. So that's 3-character short day, which is, where do we go here? Day, day, comma, date, single digit, so that's J, and 3-character here, month is capital M, 2014, that's just capital Y, and hour, minute, second, hour, minute, second. Or maybe we actually should do UTC because that's easy. Then we can just write UTC. Or does it take? Oh, it takes. We can do 000 because I'm not sure if it's actually called UTC. So we have publish date. We're gonna have to add some hard-coded fields because we don't have an author, for instance. I mean, could give back admin, but that would look very bad. So what we anyway want is we need show notes. We have title there. We need link to content. We need the actual podcast file. And then we're gonna add a custom text that's the author also. So this is the link to content. It should be absolute URL. Output the URL as text. And then we have the podcast file, which should be URL to file. We have show notes that can just be plain text, that's fine. And global custom text, I will just I will write my name. And AI generated Drupal because it should be a real person. You should not try to hide yourself when you're, especially when you do AI generated content. So that should be able to do the fields of this. Let's see here if we have enough. Link field, descriptions is the show notes, creator is the custom text, publication date is the publish date. Oh, UID, we need to add a well, we're gonna use the UUID in this case. Oh, there is no formatted, but that should be okay. Oh yeah, it doesn't show yet, but let's see, this should be possible to use here. Creator is this, description, show notes, link to content, title. Where's the actual file? Am I missing something? So I'm just gonna put this here just to see the output here. Oh, that could be published data, I guess. Need to set a path, so we call that RSS podcast.xml. No, let's do podcast general, because I'm gonna add more stuff later. So here we see it. But why doesn't it ask about the file? It should ask about the file, right? Podcast fields. Oh, I'm so stupid. Sorry. That was the normal RSS field. Here we go. This should have a podcast file. Length, mime. We could add those later. Okay. So I guess we could add some of these as well. So I guess, so this actually takes image. That's interesting. I didn't know that because I don't use iTunes or I don't use the Apple podcast reader, so I didn't know you could actually add an image per episode. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So we're gonna take well, one thing I got completely wrong. This is supposed to be podcast, not news. We're building it on podcast, of course. So we're gonna go to manage field podcast, and here we're gonna take and generate a podcast image. Let's see if I have to reuse. Did I use this name already? Maybe. Yeah. Episode image, we call it then. Episode image. This is an image. Disable. This is gonna be auto-generated, but we need to create a prompt for it to be able to be auto-generated. So I'm gonna create a plain text here. Episode image prompt. Oh, yeah, text plain long. That's fine. Could have taken text plain there as well. So we're gonna enable Interpolator on this, and this we're gonna, to not cost too much money, we're gonna base this on the show notes. So based on the show notes of a podcast about Drupal, can you take the most important news and make an abstract image of it? Make sure that you incorporate the Drupal icon somewhere in the image. Context is context. And I don't remember what weight we set on the other, so I just set super high because this has to happen later. GPT-4, well, let's take GPT-4 Turbo Preview. Right now we run batch just to try it out. And then we have to go back to the image field and enable. We're gonna use DALL-E, base mode, image prompt. We do just context here. 160, batch mode, DALL-E 3, this, neutral, to HD. We're gonna go to content, we're gonna go to our podcast and try this. So we have these two fields now that are not filled in, so if we save, it's gonna fill in these hopefully. So there's two processes, one is to generate the image prompt, the other one is to create the image. Oh, what did I, so now it thought it would wanted to create an image. That's not what we want. We want the image prompt. So I probably wrote this wrong. Because this is not the vision model, right? Make a prompt for an abstract image of it. So now we see if this works better. Then just remove it, resave. This might work, hopefully. Yeah, so this second step takes time. That means it's generating an image, because that takes time. So then we should have an image at the bottom. There we go. Have no clue what that is. And I don't know where the Drupal icon is. Is it part of this maybe? But that's okay. This is something, of course. Oh, okay. Drupal icon. So this is Drupal Mountain Camp. Okay. Yeah. Why not? I wouldn't say that that's the most important news of them all, but okay. I trust the podcast. So I'm just gonna go ahead and save here. Oops, something went wrong. Check your browser's developer console. What am I? External together with an internal. So this is this. Doesn't like to have a external. See if this works better. I guess it doesn't have to be absolute because it's gonna be on the same URL anyway. Anyway, then we need to set a lot of hard-coded. Well, we need a title field, a link field, last built field here, right? So, well, no. First thing first. This is what we added now, the image. So episode image. And this should be formatted URL to image. Can have original image, I guess. I will notice if it needs something else there. Then we just set image here. We don't have a season. Episode is something I just realized that we should probably be adding, but that's something I will add later when I start adding code to this. So I mean, there is ways around it where you can use it without coding, with just building, but for now I will just keep it as it is. So we're gonna make another custom text for this tags there, and there we just write Drupal podcast news CMS AI generated. We apply this. I mean, we can create a label because that does not show up anyway, I guess. Tags, we just call that, because then these are easier to find. Author, we call this, because it's gonna be easier to find them now, and I don't think they will be added there. This is tags. Let me just check so it doesn't get added here. Drupal, comma, iTunes keywords. No, good. Then I'm gonna add just one more field that says false to tell iTunes this is not explicit, because there's basically no chance that OpenAI can create something that's explicit. Well, it could, I guess, but not in this case. It could tell stories that are pretty horrifying, actually, even if it doesn't do certain words. The actual story could be very explicit. So this is fault duration. I'm gonna add later. Season we don't have. Episode I'm gonna add later programmatically. So then we need to add here, right? So I mean, there's two ways of doing this. I actually did this podcast information and I just realized that's pretty stupid because we're not gonna need it. But what we at least can add here is the title of it all. So podcast title, and that's Drupal weekly news. Boop, 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 boop. So we're gonna do that here. Podcast title. And this is okay, actually. I don't know if we should maybe add a description. Image, we can just take the last episode image, that's okay. But the description we should definitely add. So I'm just gonna copy from this content I made that I just realized was pretty stupid. Like this. Podcast summary. Save. No one has copyright to this. Because I mean it's auto-generated, so I should not claim copyright to this, or if anyone has it, it's the authors that we retell the stories about. I guess we can use author here, explicit, we just copy author, that's a lot of authors. I have no clue what the difference is here, but sure. Keywords. So I mean, each episode we could add tags for as well, but that's just iTunes category. We do this on podcast. See here what they might have. So I guess this goes under technology. So we just write technology here. So add another custom. We call category technology. And then we put here. I guess if someone wants to contact me, that is very okay. So we don't put content that might be bad on there. Drupal podcast@marcusmailbox.com. So I have catch-all on my host name, which is very good if you want to prevent spam, because you know who spams you, which is very good. So and this should be one thing. Publish date is completely wrong. That is the news. We're not gonna use that. We're gonna be authored on when it's created. That is what matters. And here we do custom. We do UTC. Oops, didn't take custom. So I'll tweet it, apply, save, and there we go. So I guess this is finished. I won't know until I actually put it live, because it's kind of hard to test the local RSS feed. I mean, I guess my phone is on the same network, but even then, because I'm using Doxal, I would have to allow this to the world, and that has its own security implications, so I'm not gonna do this. So the most important next step that I haven't done enough here is that we're gonna do config export. Basically everything we have done now we're gonna push also. And here's the interesting thing then: if you check all the changes we have done since we set this up, it's just configuration changes, which means we haven't written a single line of code to do this. Our automatic podcast. Yeah, guys, that's it, I guess. My next step is to like create deploy jobs, do some DevOps stuff, but I mean, that's all. I'm gonna host on DigitalOcean, as I said, I think in the beginning. I don't remember if I said this. Just search DigitalOcean LAMP, or LAMP if you prefer. Apache is actually easier to set up, but Nginx is just so much more powerful. If you don't know how to do this, though, you should do it with Ansible. But if it's a one-time thing, it's important you do this. And what's important then is that you also install ffmpeg. So these examples are always Ubuntu. I assume it's like apt here. Yeah, apt update. So to add onto this, just do sudo apt install ffmpeg. And that's it. Then you have everything you need. And make sure you set up the cron job as well, of course. It's very important. And that's it. Then you have the easy version of the podcast. I will continue now. So my next step is what I said then, episode numbers, and there I might add some prompt that it should celebrate on certain numbers when it comes to number 100 or something, and first episode maybe it says something about this. I will also add that there's going to be a discussion panel over modules. It's also going to search the security feed. So it's going to mention security updates so you don't miss those. It's also going to Google to find news that might not be in Planet Drupal. And yeah, maybe add some module of the week or something like that, where it just talks about some module based on documentation. Yeah, and that's it. So now you know how to set up a podcast, hopefully automatic, if you have RSS feed at least. So that is all. Thank you for watching. I hope it wasn't way too boring. I know it's very long, but if you stayed this long, then you were probably interested in solving it yourself. So thank you for watching.